So I saw Black Panther last night, and it was good. I thought it was good. It's not gonna convince. I mean, if you like Marvel movies, you're gonna like it. It's not gonna convince non-Marvel fans, but after 10 years, you've probably already figured that out by now, whether or not what side of that coin you're on. However, the thing is, I kind of knew how it was gonna end after like 5 minutes because I'd seen the second trailer, and after that first scene where you see T'Chaka's brother. Like, I immediately knew that that kid outside was going to be Michael B. Jordan, and he's like the son and the cousin, and they're going to go all Lion King on us. And basically, using the knowledge I had, I basically figured out the rest of the movie from there, which is not exactly something I like to do. I don't really like being able to do that, especially when it's going to end up with a climax between two guys in Black Panther suits, which is not the most exciting climax. I mean, the stuff around it is good, but it's two guys wearing basically the exact same outfit with the same power set fighting each other. And we've already seen that in like the first two Iron Mans and Ant-Man and well, I mean, Ant-Man at least had the shrinking twist. So I felt kind of disappointed that that was like the extent of it. I mean, the narrative importance of that fight was good. The ideological clash angle, but I'm getting to that later. It was it's just that the fight itself was it could have been better. It could have been more interesting. But I guess I'm just spoiled by Doctor Strange and Thor Ragnarok with coming up with interesting solutions to their big conflict problem. However, I don't really think any of that matters because really this movie I think is more about the presentation, well, not presentation, like the execution, like how it tells its story and the way that it uses traditional African visual culture and politics. Now, I've taken a class on ancient and current African art and visual culture in college, so I'm not saying I'm an expert, but because of that class, I do have more of an appreciation for the subject. Like, I'm more aware to it, and like when I first saw the trailer and I saw all the guys wearing the really nice tribal outfits with the great colored robes, and there's that guy with like the mouth thing. I was like, oh man, they're really going for it here. So shout out to Professor Cameron, the one cute girl I can never get a conversation going with in class, for instilling me with that. And I thought it was a pretty cool thing. It was pretty bold that they would use iconography in an artistic style that's very, foreign for this film. Because, like, most of the Marvel movies, they've been very American. I try to think of an exception, but nah, this one is kind of the least American Marvel movie, in a way. And I'm gonna get to that later. So to have them to have a great visual representation of a foreign culture that is completely isolated from the rest of the world and like has developed to its own self and has its own technology and its own like building structures and like development, it was really interesting and they totally nailed that aspect of it, at least in the presentation. So it was really cool that Hollywood was, well, Disney was able to secure the fundings because I bet like 10 years ago you probably couldn't get this kind of movie made, except, and that's why people bring it up Coming to America, but that movie took place in America. And this place has like maybe a scene in America. So it was really cool that they were able to use this kind of visual culture to tell this kind of pretty understandable story. It's at this point Keegan realized that it's entirely possible that this movie only used a surface level understanding of African art and visual culture in order to provide it with its own unique visual aesthetic, in order to trick moviegoers into thinking that this is an accurate representation of the African people. And unfortunately, he's too dumb to know the difference. The main conflict of this movie revolves around essentially Wakanda's debate with isolationism and interventionalism. Now, I don't want to turn into a wisecrack video, but I feel like talking about this kind of stuff rather than just saying whether or not a movie was good or not is more interesting to me. And so Wakanda in the comics and in the movies and in the story has been extremely isolationist. Like, they've cut off their borders. Now, isolationism essentially boils down to screw everywhere else as long as Wakanda's okay. A Wakanda first, if you will, versus interventionalism, which is on the flip coin, where your country thinks that it's best to aid other countries or intervene in their affairs to make sure that no one does anything and screw things up, which is something that America is more like based around, and hence why Captain America is like the physical embodiment of that, where because he just has to go out and save everyone. Same with like Superman, both symbols of America, both symbols of going to countries that aren't theirs and fixing their problems for them. So they got very different philosophies in the beginning. Now, if your country's trying to run both interventionalism and isolationism, well, congratulations, your country's run by idiots. And so here we get that conflict because we have Prince T'Challa, who's now in command, and he wants to preserve the Wakandan way of isolationism, but like his on again, off again girlfriend believes in interventionalism, hence why she likes to become a spy and go into other countries and like help them. And the main villain of this movie, Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan's character, he believes that, hey, we've got all this superior technology, we can go and essentially conquest the rest of the country. So he's kind of torn between these two opposing parties, one of which says we can save everyone using medicine and science, or we can save everyone using warfare. But of course, doing so jeopardizes the Wakandan way of life, and he's not ready to do that yet. And that's where the main conflict of the movie happens, because when Killmonger shows up and usurps the throne in like the easiest way possible, but I'm not to judge on their political system, it's clearly worked for them for a while, and decides to immediately go on the warpath and distribute weapons to foreign countries to like solidify Wakandan as the top power that it always has secretly been. It made T'Challa have to like reevaluate himself and his values, which is why at the end of the movie he sides with Lupita's character and determines, you know what, clearly things aren't going right. I think it's about time that Wakanda steps into the spotlight and like breaches out and becomes more interventionist, but he decides to do it in the way of science and medicine, a more helpful method of helping people out instead of spending military, which is a concern that's constantly brought up. How they think that, yeah, it's possible we can use Wakandan weapons to go and take out other countries, but we would leave our own borders because they're still a small country. They can't defend themselves and overextend themselves at the same time. which is a concern that's brought up by Daniel Kaluuya's character, the Get Out guy. Because he said, yeah, I'd like to go and be militant in other countries, but we got to protect our borders. Because he says if you let other people come into your country, they bring their problems. And that's exactly what happens in the movie. Killmonger gets into the country and then brings all his rage that he's built up against his family and the country that he feels like abandoned him, and basically tries to output that by essentially attempting to be a tyrant. And T'Challa tells him about this. He's saying, dude, you've basically become what you've always hated by trying to use military to go out and like take over the earth. That's basically the exact same thing that the people you're mad at did. That's what the British did to us. So let's talk about the direction. It's directed by Ryan Coogler. And I mean, I think I like him as a director. Now, I didn't really like Creed as much as everyone else did, because most of the movie was basic shot reverse shot, like pretty basic cinematic storytelling, but fortunately when the movie needed to bring it, it really brought it. Like the boxing sequences and the training montage were really great and really added to that film. And for this movie, I don't know, it felt kind of like a step backwards. There wasn't really that much interesting. It kind of had the same problem, like, because when there were really cool moments, they were really cool, but the rest of the film was just kind of normal. Like basic, standard, homogenous Marvel movie fare. And that's how I was able to predict basically every story beat of this film. But again, I still liked it. Now, in terms of the music, I was actually a bit concerned because I heard Kendrick Lamar was going to do some original songs. And I felt that, and based off of what they used in the trailers, I was afraid that they were going to lean too heavily into rap. Now, rap was made by African Americans, and so the boring option would to just use that as the basis. But again, that's not exact. Just because it's African American doesn't mean it's African. And so I was concerned that it was going to be too much rap, less traditional African musical stylings. But fortunately, the soundtrack is full of like actually interesting and culturally appropriate songs. I don't really know the words to describe them that don't really sound stupid, or that don't make me sound stupid, because I'm not a very music guy. I'm not a music guy. I guess missed opportunities was I just felt like Killmonger didn't have enough screen time. Because, I mean, it's not like his plan didn't have a logical flow, like every step made sense to a point. But it felt like everything happened really fast, because he shows up and, like, he challenges T'Challa, and T'Challa accepts. Because if he didn't, the movie would have been over immediately. Like, what would have happened if he just said no? Is there like laws for that? Can the king just say no? He becomes king, and the next day he's sending out guns to other countries, and I just felt like we needed more time. Like he and T'Challa needed more like FaceTime to each other to like talk rather than just fighting, which is why one of my favorite scenes from Doctor Strange is when he's fighting Caecilius and he puts him in that like whole body trap and he just sits him down and he's like, dude, why are you doing this? And he's like, I want to make everyone immortal, damn it. And he's like, okay, but why? And we just kind of needed a scene like that. There wasn't like a heart to heart. There wasn't like a scene where they like talk to each other. Like he shows up, kicks his ass, and then the next time you see each other they fight again. I mean, fortunately there's like they did have that conversation at the end in front of the Lion King sunset, but he was already dying. And I'm like, it would have been nicer if you guys had talked before you fought, because then I can feel more emotionally invested in these two guys, because they're related. I mean, they're cousins, and I'm really close with my cousins. So if I had to ever get in a physical altercation where one of us had died, I would probably get really upset. So yeah, the fight kind of had that lacked that emotional punch because they didn't really know each other too well. It was just the ideological clash of we should take over everything versus no, we should stay protected, rather than the a fight between two separated family members. So maybe if they decided to wait the week needed to resummon all the tribes to do the ceremony, then they could have like had that sit down, but yeah, I guess we don't have it. I guess we won't get that. Also, like, it was pretty cool that we got to see Vibranium do pretty much everything at this point. Like, are they able to, like, what, cure cancer or AIDS? Oh my god, are they able to cure AIDS?
It's at this point that Keegan realized that maybe we shouldn't ask so many questions about our comic book movies.